Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zanu PF is determined to stay in power at all costs. And millions of ordinary Zimbabweans, the whole country, is being held hostage to the regime's political ambitions. Here is a summary of a statement on the land tenure policy that the regime is now pursuing. Says the title deeds for all land held under the 1990-year lease, offer letters, and permits. Priority will be given to war veterans of the liberation struggle, the youths and the women. Security of tenure to all agricultural land only, to be transferable among the indigenous. New land tenure system will exclude communal lands. In other words, the rural people are excluded. This is, to say the least, really infuriating. What is he saying here? What is this regime saying? We are being told here that deeds will be given to those who already have the 99-year lease or offer letters and permits or permits. These are people who are already, at least they've got a foot on the economic ladder. Why they'd been denied the title deeds all these years, it's another debate. But now at least they're foot on the economic ladder and they are going up. The rural people, they are the poorest of the poor in Zimbabwe. They have absolutely nothing. This new policy is very explicit. They are not going to be given anything. They are not even going to be given a heads up. A 50-year lease on the land. An offer letter, nothing. They have to remain where they are. And in the communal areas, as the name implies, the land is owned communally by everybody. And that means nobody owns anything. They are not allowed to even have the confidence that 1 acre on which their grass thatched hut stands is theirs. The whole argument is totally meaningless. Priority is being given to the war veterans. And yet, we all know that Zimbabwe's war of independence was fought in the rural areas. That is where the real fighting took place. And those rural people were at the heart of it, whether they liked it or not. There were probably as many civilians injured and killed as those who were wielding the guns, the freedom fighters. The rural people provided the Chimgidos and Mjibas who were sent on errands up and down the country on behalf of the freedom fighters. And yet today, these same people are being treated not even as third-class citizens, because at least as a third-class citizen, you'll probably be entitled to some rights and human dignity. They are denied everything. The reason for it is very simple. It's political. We cannot deny that Zanu PF is deliberately keeping the rural people poor for its own political gains. That is a fact. Yesterday, when I discussed this very issue, I played a video of a short clip video of Margaret Longo speaking on the same subject. Here she is again explaining that very point.
They have wrong priorities, especially the current government. How can you go and build an airport which services a few people, and the majority are the elite and the so-called investors? Look at the rural. I made you come to interview me because I wanted you to have the experience of the roads that we are using. If we go today to our hospital there, you feel pity with that's a hospital in a rural area. If we go to our clinic, you feel pity. We have no piped water here. Do you know the reason why the rural people vote for Zanu PF? One, they're intimidated. Two, the policy is that the rural people should remain poor and subservient to the government. They should remain poor, because if they remain poor, they continue singing the song for their master. This is why these people have been impoverished. It's for a reason. But at the moment, if you economic empower these people, they'll go out of hand. Zanu PF will never have control over them.
If the truth be told, even the war veterans themselves who may think, yes, we are finally getting the title deeds. I think these title deeds are coming with a caveat. The war veterans, we all know the last 44 years, what their role has been. They have been expected to support the regime blindly. And they are getting title deeds on the understanding that that blind loyalty to the party will continue. So the regime is ruthless, even to those who were at the coalface of the fighting for independence. Their freedom or their rights are on condition that they continue supporting the regime. As for the voiceless rural povo, they remain hostage to the system. It is disappointing that Mnangagwa, whilst he is denying the people the right to own even 1 acre of land, he and his fellow ruling elite are the owners of the former white seized farms. Here he is tenting in one of his farms. As you can see right up to the horizon. That's the size of farm that he has. And he has got the title deeds. And so with these children and these cronies. But for the poor, they are to have nothing. They're not entitled to have anything at all. This is the life of the Zimbabwe poor. The gentleman we're seeing there is wearing a Zanu PF t-shirt, which you would have been given during the campaign period before you was frog marched to the polling station to vote for the regime. And once the regime had secured its victory, he is completely forgotten until next elections. The Zimbabwean ordinary people have been reduced to nothing more than medieval serfs beholden to the regime. It is tragic that so many lives were lost fighting for freedom, for human dignity. And yet, this is where we are. 44 years after independence, this is the kind of life some people, the majority in fact, because the majority of the Zimbabwe populace live in the rural areas. This is the life that they've been condemned to. If anyone seriously think that Zanu PF will ever grant title deeds to the communal areas, then they need their heads examined. Zimbabwe's economic meltdown only means the regime knows that it has got to hang on to power and is more desperate to hang on to power more than ever before. In 2008, when the country had what many would agree was the nearest we ever got to having free, fair, and credible elections, the rural people, yes, the rural people seized on the opportunity to vote the regime out of office. The regime didn't like it. As the results started pouring in, and when it became clear that Zanu PF was losing, Mnangagwa himself stepped in, stopped the SEC announcing the results, and ordered that there should be a recount, which he and his friends proceeded to carry out. And it took 6 weeks to recount 5 million votes. And part of that exercise was to whittle down MDC's win. Morgan Tsvangirai had won 73% of the vote. It was whittled down to 47%, forcing a runoff. And during the runoff, Mnangagwa and these Joint Operation Command units carried out the worst electoral violence that the country had ever seen. beating up the rural people in what he called Operation Mafutera Papi, reminding that they are subjects to the regime. This is where we are. Here is a video clip of Mnangagwa boasting of his exploits that year.
2008 patakaita ma-elections pakaposa papinda Tsvangirai ndandiri election agent ya-president. Ma-results abuda tiri pa-party headquarters vamutasa vanga vari secretary vedu ve-administration vamutasa muripi ndafona ndiri kwarusapi komogwenda kwarusapi seka ma-results achibuda kudai vanga aiwa zvako izvo Mnangagwa ndezvako endaenda kumusha ofisi vanga vabisa zvinhu zvavo zvose watofunga kuti zani yadini yaparara. President ofona zvakamira sei kati ndomamira zvakaita takatodini kateda sei manje mama ndikati abvudzai baba nditaure navo baba gadzirai politburo cabinet musarangarira zvimwe zvipi gadzirai chi cabinet asi nangoda kuti muzive kuti 2008 ma-results abuda vamutasa vakatiza.
As a country we face a generational transition. Vana vesa vari kuma below 35 they are crying out for help. The country is in a mess. Arusurufaro. We know we are inheriting a mess. We know this country has been left with nothing.
I'm assuring you that starting from tomorrow, you'll see a different nation from what you have seen or read on the news about these results and everything. Where we are going ahead there, the situation will be very different. What we said to our people, they could not see with their own eyes. We are going to act as we see it fit. We are prepared to go the whole distance.
Zanu PF has maintained its iron grip on power. The rural areas remain its stronghold, and part of its control is totally dependent on denying those people any economic empowerment of any kind. Keeping them poor is part of Zanu PF's plan in making sure that the party retains its control over the rural poor. This is the reality. For the record, SADC did reject Zanu PF's claim to have won the 2008 elections and forced the regime to go into the GNU. The GNU was the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have ended the Zanu PF dictatorship. Alas, Morgan Tsvangirai and company were bribed and they forgot all about the reforms. And hence the reason why we are where we are today, stuck with the Zanu PF dictatorship. As long as Zanu PF retains carte blanche powers to rig the elections and to deny the rural people their right to own land, the regime will remain in power. there will be no meaningful change. That is the political reality that we must address. There is no way we can stop Zanu PF controlling the rural poor. It has got its big boot on their throat, and they can't even breathe. The only way to address this issue is not so much to stop Zanu PF oppressing the rural poor, but to stop the urban voters who the regime does not have control over, playing their part in perpetuating the dictatorship. There can be no doubt that if the urban voters did not participate in last year's elections, in their millions, SADC, who condemned the 2023 elections as flawed and illegal, would have denied Zanu PF political legitimacy, as they did in 2008. Our problem here is with the urban voters. They've turned out to be so incredibly gullible, naive. It is unbelievable that in this day and age, so many, millions in fact, would be so naive as to believe that the opposition have done nothing wrong. Many of the Chamisa Chete Chete brigade are refusing to accept that Chamisa lied to them last year, for instance. That when he said he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, he was lying. And yet we've got people out there who, while on the one hand accept, yes, that Zanu PF rigged the 2023 elections, but they would not accept that Chamisa lied to them, that he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes. What is worse, they're going to participate in 2028 and give Zanu PF legitimacy. We can end the circus. We can end the suffering of our people, particularly in the rural areas. They are the poorest of the poor. They own absolutely nothing. They are not even being given the opportunity to own even 1 acre of land on the basis of a 1-year lease. Because Zanu PF does not want them to own anything. Because Zanu PF does not want to take its big foot off their throat. It's a pity that those in a position to end this madness by stopping participating in these flawed elections are the ones who, in their foolishness, are keeping Zanu PF in power. The urban voters in Zimbabwe are now as much a problem to Zimbabwe's political crisis as Zanu PF itself by rigging the elections, as the opposition leaders themselves for failing to implement any reforms and participating in flawed elections out of greed, and for these Chamisa Chete Chete Brigade for being blindly loyal to Chamisa to the point of considering him a demigod who can do no wrong. Chamisa is a mere mortal. And not only that, he is one with a track record of being corrupt and incompetent. And how anyone with half a brain can be so easily conned into believing that Chamisa would win big, rigged elections, even after 44 years of rigged elections. Beggars belief. Simply unbelievable. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Have a good day.